Welcome to Ill-Equipped History, where two best friends talk about something from history, even though we are super ill-equipped to do so. I'm Morgan, joined by my lovely tan co-host, Emileigh.
Hey, y'all.
From her beach trip.
My beach trip. I want you to know that I was so relaxed on this beach. Well, as relaxed as a group of family members with 8 children, 10 and under can be. Mm-hmm. But we're all pretty good at, keeping a hold of them.
That's good.
My phone, when I got home, I was in the shower and I was listening to music. And it, the pop down where it's like, your screen time last week was, 4 hours, 3 hours, whatever. Average 30 minutes every day. I didn't even look at I wasn't answering the phone for nobody. Nothing. Nobody.
Sometimes you just need to, not be near your phone. You just need to disconnect from it.
Y'all, my brain was so happy. I was just looking around. I'd take pictures. I think the most I was on my phone was I was taking pictures on that ghost tour. Mm-hmm. But my uncle is, crazy about candid photos. So he just takes photo after photo after photo. And I take a couple, and then Nick takes it. His camera's kind of better than mine because I've got a kind of an older iPhone. So, why do I need my phone? It's just there in case of an emergency or so I can look at 360 and see where my husband's at. So, yeah. I just don't need it.
Nice.
I ain't doing it. It's nice. You know what? I was like, I think I'm going to scale back even more because I've scaled back a lot. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I didn't even read on the beach. Mostly because I had to watch my children.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't drown. So we kept counting. That's how you keep up with 8 kids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we're good.
All right.
Yeah.
They're all accounted for.
All accounted for. So how are you?
Hanging in there. I've got a doctor's appointment coming up, and I'm a little nervous, but I'm trying to be optimistic and hopefully figure out why I've had this cough for so long and why it won't go away.
It's because you have things to do with your voice, and your body's like, nah.
Literally, I had such big hopes for the summer. I was like, I'm going to start exercising more. I'm going to start doing jujitsu more often. I'm going to do all the stuff around my house. And literally the first week of summer vacation, I lost my voice and I haven't gotten better.
I think that's what happens when we put too much, we're like, this is going to happen this year. Because this has happened to me multiple times. In 2020, all I heard was 2020 is going to be my year. And it was no one's year.
It was everyone's worst year.
And then last year, I had told a friend, not a couple weeks prior, that I was going to learn how to do a 360 on the surfboard behind the boat. I was like, I'm going to do it. This is the year.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't walk for 6 weeks in the summer.
Yeah.
Let alone surf. So I think we should just vibe from here on out.
We're no longer having any expectations for ourselves.
No goals, only living.
No more achievements, no more growth. We're just going to stagnate and vibe and not hurt ourselves anymore.
My slip and slide incident anniversary was just a few days ago during recording. And I'm nervous because I'm like, I feel like if I think about it too much or say, oh, hey, I've gone a whole year walking, I'm going to jinx myself and do it again. So I'm trying to ignore it. But I did want to say that, what was it? I think it was July the 4th. Or the 5th,
one of those
fudged
days.
It. Yeah, I fudged it.
Well, I'm glad you're walking now. And thankfully we don't have to walk to do this skit that we're going to do.
Ha-ha.
Like that segue.
Okay. I love it. It's a perfect segue. Flawless. Okay, let's do it. Hey, I need your help. I have a problem with the president, and a little bird told me you can help me with this problem.
I'm your guy. I have an even bigger problem with the president, so you just tell me what to do, and I gotcha. What's the issue?
He's wanting me to pay my taxes. What's up with that? I need to make money, and I won't make money if I have to pay taxes.
I gotcha, man. You know what? If I was president, you wouldn't have to pay anything.
Oh?
Yeah, if I was president, I would give you whatever you wanted. You want half of the country? I'll give you half of the country.
Can I get that in writing?
Sure. Just make sure you get me that presidency.
Deal. I know someone who can help us. He's what you would call an expert in political upheaval.
All right. So I've been thinking about this topic for a few days now, or a few weeks now. Today, Emileigh, we're going to be talking about the history of banana republics.
What?
Mm-hmm. Do you know what that is?
Other than the store? No.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the banana industry. The banana.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Okay.
So, banana republics overall are used to describe usually poorer countries, typically in Latin America and the Caribbean, whose economy was really dependent on one crop export, like bananas. Right. So I won't be using the term banana republics very often in this because in modern writings, it's seen as a derogatory term. It's seen as outdated and offensive because it's really used as a put down on those countries who a lot of times were being subjected to very corrupt business practices with basically being run by elites and corporations outside of the country. But I didn't really know a lot about banana republics, and I know that there's a clothing brand, and when I was like, why on earth is there a clothing brand named after this horrible business practice?
Yeah, what is that?
Which I will get into at the end. I will talk about the company Banana Republic.
Okay.
The term Banana Republic was first used in 1901 in author O. Henry's novel Cabbages and Kings, describing a fictional country based on Honduras.
Okay.
It's, like I said, it's usually used to describe a country whose economy was based on the export of a single fruit, like bananas. Historically, banana republics have been utilized by the United States. The most famous examples were exploited by the United States, but also Great Britain, Germany, more of those European, what we would think of more Western businesses. And not only is the actual product and the business practice exploited by this outside company, the distribution and production is also handled by this outside company as well within a single country. And typically it becomes a monopoly within that country. And to survive in this country, you have to work for this mega corporation to survive. It's a lot. This is not going to be a super happy episode because we're going to be talking about some pretty imperialist and colonialist practices preying on these more unstable countries, and some just active coups that happened that were funded by these fruit companies.
Rude.
Yeah. Usually it was a corrupt authoritarian government that would make deals with these corporations. The people living in the countries, and the workers and stuff, had very little say in the governing of their own countries. Usually the politics were heavily influenced by the wealthy business capitalists, which is not a good way to run a country.
No.
And a lot of the times, a lot of the farmable land was owned by these corporations, so people living there couldn't even farm or grow their own produce to survive in the country. There's also racist undertones. When you think of banana republics, are usually, I can't think of a single Banana Republic that's like a white
Yeah.
area. It's usually
Yeah.
people of color that are being subjugated. And this is a quote from, I believe it was a collector.com. The term, quote, underscored the agency and identity of people by characterizing them as a powerless, monolithic body useful only for their labor. So instead of, when you think of like Honduras, instead of thinking of, a rich culture full of people with all kinds of different, beliefs and talents and all that, it's when historically the term Banana Republic was like, oh, this country is used to produce bananas and that's it. And that's all they're good for, which is, of course, not true. And over time, this practice allowed the American military and industrial complex to justify complete control over a country that had nothing else going for it, essentially, in their kind of thought process. You're going to have some very unpatriotic feelings at the end of this episode.
I'm having feelings already.
Mm-hmm. Here's another quote from Aaron Stoyak from thecollector.com, quote, despite the origins of the phrase, it is important to note that the term is used here not as a reduction of the nations it describes, but as an illustration of the unfortunate outcomes suffered under colonialism. And that's how I'll be referring to it as well.
Okay.
And like I said, it wasn't just America. Britain was a colonizer, the ultimate colonizer at this time that we're going to start talking about. It controlled India, Australia, Hong Kong, Honduras, and Germany and Britain were colonizing Africa. The Dutch were in on it. So, all this colonialism happening. Authoritarian regimes would basically force the populace to work on these plantations and would quash any attempts at protest or rebellion against them. And like I said, I'm going to be talking about two major coups that happened, one in 1911 in Honduras and another one in 1954 in Guatemala. But I'll be talking about those a little bit later. The most important character in this story is Sam the Banana Man.
He doesn't sound threatening at all.
No.
Why does he look terrifying?
In front of all those bananas.
Yes.
So he was born Shmuel Davidovich in 1877. His parents' last names were Zemurray. They're Russian. He immigrated to the U.S. from Russia when he was 14 after his father died and changed his name to Samuel Zemurray.
Okay.
He started his own banana company in New Orleans in 1899. And what he basically did is that he would go to ships that were importing fruit, especially bananas, and he would buy the ones that had ripened in the journey, and then he would sell those ripe bananas to vendors.
Oh, okay.
And he made a lot of money doing this. Like, it was a very, very successful business that he made. He made $100,000 in his first 3 years doing this by the time he was 21 years old in 1899.
Wow. Wait, 100,000 in 1899? Hold on, stand by 1899. Pretty much $3.8 million.
Selling bananas.
Selling bananas. Wow.
Like, yeah.
Holy shit.
I know. A company named United Fruit, who I'll also talk about a little bit later, hired him to be their point of contact for imports in Mobile, Alabama. Like, because he was so successful at his banana business, United Fruit was like, hey, will you handle, like, our distribution in Mobile? He was like, yeah.
Right.
Made a lot of money doing that. He eventually got enough money to buy 2 steamships with a man named Ashbel Hubbard in 1903. And they started their own banana plantation in 1910 in Honduras and started the Guatemalan Fruit Company.
Wow.
When Zemurray started Guatemalan, he started becoming super entrenched in Honduran politics and started making friends with the politicians and kind of shaking things up and exploiting the labor.
Right.
I'm going to circle back to this, but just to finish out Zemurray very, very briefly. Eventually, he sold Guatemalan to United Fruit Company in 1930 for $30 million. United Fruit Company was struggling during the Great Depression, and Zemurray came in and changed up the entire company. According to the ANU Museum, he fired the entire board.
Wow.
After they were super anti-Semitic and xenophobic to him. According to the website, they made fun of his accent, and then he fired everyone. So, while he was president of United Fruit, it owned 75% of private land in Guatemala and Honduras.
Oh, my God.
And employed over 100,000 people. United Fruit had its own rail service, its own postal service, and its own telephone service.
Ooh.
And
getting into like monopoly territory here.
Especially because Guatemalan and United Fruit were the big two competitors, and then they merged.
Ooh, that is definition monopoly.
Yeah. So, and I'll elaborate more on them a little bit later. Zemurray did die in 1961, and the New York Times describes Zemurray as, quote, the fish that swallowed the whale. And that's also the title of a book about him.
Wow.
So now we're going to talk about the Honduran coup. The president of Honduras was named Miguel Davila, and Zemurray did not like Davila because Zemurray was not paying the tariffs on the exports on his bananas to the U.S. And Davila was like, hey, so Davila, he was a more liberal president that had just been elected, and had some more liberal policies. And I'll touch upon it a little bit, but apparently he was like borrowing from the United States. And then JP Morgan Bank like offered him a loan that was a little bit predatory, and Davila didn't want to take this loan. But that pissed off because it was like, well, offer you this loan to pay back your debt. It's very confusing, and I didn't really want to talk about it too much because I didn't really understand it. But basically, the U.S. government really wanted him to take this loan, and Davila didn't want to take the loan. But he didn't really have another way to pay back the debt that he owed, so he wanted Zemurray to pay all the taxes that he owned on the bananas he was exporting, because Zemurray had gone years without paying any taxes. So, oh my God. And several articles attributed how he was able to grow his wealth so quickly from not paying the taxes on his banana exports. So Zemurray was like, hey, I want to overthrow the Honduran government.
I would rather overthrow the Honduran government than pay my banana taxes.
Yes. So Zemurray found a man named Manuel Bonilla, and he had been a former president before Davila, and he was a little bit more radical, and not in a good way.
Oh.
And Bonilla wanted power again. And so these two found each other, and they're like, yes, let's overthrow the president. So they met up in like New Orleans, and they're like, okay, we're gonna stage a coup. So they found a guy named Lee Christmas, which that's a very innocuous sounding name for a crazy mofo. This guy was a straight up mercenary who was super involved in fighting in a lot of revolutions throughout Central America.
He's kind of got the crazy eye. Like, he's got a look about him.
That's the only picture I could find of him. The only other thing that I saw when I was looking up Lee Christmas was Jason Statham's character in The Expendables, whose name is apparently also Lee Christmas. So, yeah. Oh. Yeah. So they got Lee Christmas he was like, yes, I'm super into this plot to overthrow the presidency. So he got his buddy, George Machine Gun Maloney, who is a gangster from New Orleans, who apparently just had like machine guns.
Oh, not MGK? Not Machine Gun Kelly?
No.
Machine Gun Maloney?
No. He had like actual machine guns that he used.
Oh.
We've got Manuel Bonilla, his personal aide, Florian Davadi, not Diwali, Davadi, and then Sam Zemurray. So all these guys like plotted. And eventually in 1911, Christmas Maloney and 20 other men systematically deposed the Honduran government.
Okie dokie.
And the weapons that they had were supplied by Guatemalan Fruit Company.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So at the time, there was a law of neutrality for getting into conflicts.
Right.
And the American government learned about this coup that was happening. But they were so mad at Davila for not taking out this loan with JP Morgan that they were like, oh, we're just going to look this way while this coup is actively happening.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, that happened. And eventually the U.S. forbade the Honduran government to, like, have an armed force, which forced Davila to disband his military, which caused the insurgents to come in and, like, take over everything.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And Davila resigned from the presidency.
Yeah. I probably would, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right, the coup was a success. Bonilla took over February of 1912, and all of the federal charges that were brought forth by, like, a New Orleans lawyer for the coup were dropped by the U.S. president himself. I think it was William Taft at the time. So, no one was charged in this. No one. Not Christmas, not Maloney, not Bonilla, not Zemurray. No one was charged. Bonilla is now the president of Honduras, and he gave Zemurray almost 50,000 acres of land across Honduras and didn't require him to pay any taxes for 25 years.
What?
And let him take out a loan against himself to pay back his money for the coup, but it was basically like wasn't a real loan. Like Zemurray was just allowed to pay himself back.
What? Mm-hmm. Oh my.
Mm-hmm. And Bonilla died the following year, 1913.
So he didn't even stick around for any of this.
Mm-mm. But Zemurray stuck around and continued to exploit Honduras.
And how old was he? Because, like, if he was older, it was 1912, right?
He was born in 1877, so he was almost 40.
So, 25 years. I mean, he's getting to the end of his life anyway. By then, he would have amassed so much money. Once he starts paying taxes again, it's going to just feel like pocket change.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And it didn't even stop there because Zemurray continued to influence Honduran presidents after Bonilla died up until Zemurray himself died to his own advantage.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. So that's Sam the Banana Man. And that we're not going to be done talking about him. He'll come up a little bit later, but that's the Guatemalan, or that's the Honduran coup.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he looks too sinister to have a name like Sam the Banana Man.
I know, right? All right, so now we're going to talk about the United Fruit Company. So it started as the Boston Fruit Company, founded by Captain Lorenzo Dowbaker and Andrew Preston in 1870.
Okay.
In the 1880s, it started importing bananas from Jamaica, and it was really their efforts and a little bit of Zemurray to help make bananas popular in the U.S. Because before this, they weren't really, but there was insane marketing that went into the banana. And oh my God, bananas were just the new craze. No one could get enough of this strange little curved fruit from the tropics. Which, I mean, bananas are delicious, so
they are delicious.
Understand, but it was a craze. The United Fruit Company itself was founded on March 30th, 1899, and it was a merger between Boston Fruit Company and Minor C. Keith Railroad. Mm-hmm. The demand for bananas grew, and more companies started looking to the Caribbean and Central America to set up their own fruit plantations, including United Fruit. There's a lot of advocating for the company to expand, and a lot of local merchants and farmers really suffered under the monopolization of the United Fruit Company.
Yeah.
Because the United Fruit was just taking all this land, and that was taking it from local farmers. United Fruit built factories on the land, had connections to the railways and port cities. Going back to Cuyamel, by 1929, Cuyamel was a major competitor to United Fruit. United Fruit then acquired Cuyamel in 1930. Again, Zemurray took like $30 million for this merger. And part of the deal is that Zemurray would become the company's largest stockholder.
Ooh, so he's just...
He's raking it in.
Oh my God.
But after this merger, the Great Depression hit. And stocks continued to fall until Zemurray had another coup that, like I said, he basically fired his entire board in 1938 when he became president. And then after that, United Fruit became the leader again in banana exports. And one of their resources is what they called the Great White Fleet. And it's just really a ship of white boats, or a fleet of white ships. They had 61 ships. And at the time, it was the largest private fleet in the world.
Holy for bananas?
For bananas!
I mean, you keep talking and I'm like, this can't just be for bananas.
It's bananas! It's crazy.
It is bananas. It's bananas about bananas.
It's BANANAS bananas. This shit is bananas.
What?
I noticed that when you were talking last week about the World's Fair and you had a section about racism. I also have a section about racism.
Yay, because it's everywhere.
Because, of course, there was racism with all this other exploitation.
Yeah.
So every black worker that came to work for United Fruit, regardless of their qualifications, were forced to work in labor jobs. They could have been like a marketing director, but if they were a black person, they were forced to work in labor positions, like hard labor positions.
I'm pretty sure if I roll my eyes anymore, I'm going to lose a contact. Like, what the fuck?
It's really bad. The workers were paid very little, and sometimes the currency they were paid with could only be used at United Fruit stores. So it wasn't even like legal tender. It's not even
real money. They're paying the monopoly money because they're black. Oh my God.
Back in 1870, Guatemala had passed laws that forced the indigenous peoples to work on farmland they didn't own. And it was a very similar process to like the sharecropping practices that were used in the southern United States, where you were forced to work on land that wasn't yours. And it wasn't slavery, but it was basically slavery.
It's like slavery with a fancy title.
Yeah, and like fake money. They literally had white overseers.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't just the black workers, it was the indigenous workers. If you worked for United Fruit and you were not a white person, you were exploited. And another thing that they did is that they segregated living quarters between the indigenous and the black workers. And they would pit the groups against each other to maintain control. So they're like, oh, it's not us that's causing your problems. It's this other group that's causing all your problems.
Oh, my God.
This is going to rock your world, and not in a good way.
Oh, no.
United Fruit rebranded in 1984 as Chiquita Brands International and is still the leading distributor of bananas in the United States. Chiquita Banana.
No. Oh, no. Oh, no.
And you know what? I was just thinking about this. When I go to the store and buy bananas, the only bananas that I see have the blue Chiquita label on them.
Yeah, they do. They sure as hell do.
Chiquita does still have the Great White Fleet, and they are very proud to say they've utilized it since 1907.
Are they the same boats?
I don't think they're the exact same boat since 1907,
okay.
But it's still called the Great White Fleet because they paint all their boats white.
Okay, I see a picture now. Yeah, that boat was not built in 1907.
All right, so now... No. So, I'm going to talk about another coup now.
Okay.
This one is going to make you feel super unpatriotic. I'm just going to go and forewarn you. This was the coup in Guatemala. So, starting in the early 1900s, Guatemala's economy was very reliant on the export of bananas. United Fruit Company owned a lot of the land in Guatemala, owned 42% of the land in
like
Guatemala.
Half the country.
Almost.
Oh my God.
And it also controlled 2/3 of the exports coming out of Guatemala, and they had their own telephone and telegraph lines. So they were very powerful. United Fruit was friends with Jorge Ubico, who was a dictator of Guatemala. And United Fruit could basically do whatever it wanted with no regard for workers' rights at all.
I hate
So
this.
in 1944, there's a revolution. And the rebels won. Democracy, yay! In 1944, Guatemala had their first ever democratic elections ever.
Wow.
They were building schools. They established a minimum wage. They enacted national suffrage across the country. Like, really, really great policies in place. In 1951, Jacobo Arbenz was elected as president of Guatemala, and his mission was to take this land that was owned by the corporations and give it back to the people. And this made me laugh so hard. So the government bought the land from these corporations it seized at the price the property owners had listed it as for tax purposes. So you can imagine that they undervalued the price of the land, so they didn't have to pay as much taxes. And then the government bought the land at that price that the corporations themselves had listed it as. So they were getting so much land for crazy cheap.
Right.
By the end of 1952, the Guatemalan government had redistributed almost half of United Fruit's land.
Wow.
As you can imagine, United Fruit was not happy about this.
Yeah.
It lobbied to the U.S. government. And think about the time period. This is the 1950s. So all United Fruit had to do was say, they're communist.
Oh, no.
And the kicker. So John Foster Dulles was the Secretary of State, and he was a former United Fruit Company lawyer. It was either his brother or his cousin, Alan Dulles, who's the director of the CIA, and he was a former United Fruit board member. And then we have Ed Whitman, who's the husband of Eisenhower's personal secretary, and he's a United Fruit PR executive.
Oh, no.
So you have all these, like, current and former United Fruit workers, like higher-ups, working in the U.S. government or having close ties to the U.S. government in the CIA.
There's too many ties.
Very sus. Very, very sus. So United Fruit is like, they spent like $5 million lobbying to the U.S., being like, they're all communist. And again, it's the 50s. And you have the CIA that's super against communism. And Eisenhower is like, hell yeah, let's kill those commies. So,
oh my God.
The CIA began formulating Operation PBSuccess, and its mission is, quote, is to remove, quote, the menace of the present communist-controlled government of Guatemala. May I remind you that it's literally a democratic country now, but United Fruit didn't want all their land being taken from them, so they're like, they're communist. So.
I hate this.
It really sucks.
Oh, I hate this so much.
The CIA involved Carlos Castillo Armas, who is a disgruntled ex-military officer who was against Arbenz. The CIA set up a huge propaganda campaign and misinformation campaign, not only to the administration, but to the citizens of Guatemala, and like filled the radio waves with false information. So the people were hearing this misinformation, like that was saying that the current presidency was super ineffective, that they were in danger from the rebels. It was just a mess. They literally bombed areas of Guatemala City, used spies to like within the higher ups of the Guatemalan government to discredit the president and turn the public against him. And it all worked. On June 27th, 1954, Arbenz resigned and fled the country.
And he was doing good things for the people.
He was! And it's so infuriating because, like, it makes you want to shake something.
Yeah.
The U.S. was high-fiving its own dick. It was like, yeah, we did a good job. We took care of those communists. But other countries saw what happened.
I was not expecting you to say that.
They were so proud of themselves.
They were. Oh my God. For a dumb reason. Because they got scared of the word communist. They weren't even commies.
Because a banana corporation was like, our land is being bought from us at prices that we set. Because we took almost half of this country's land for our bananas, that we're not letting the people that live in this country have access to or work themselves, and we're exploiting them for their labor. But yeah, they're the bad guys.
Yeah. We just want money. It's so innocent.
Yeah. This didn't go unseen to the rest of the world, though. One reporter called what had happened economic colonialism, which is true. Yeah. People were like, wow, this is really shitty. And the U.S. is like, who, me? No, I didn't do anything. Turns out, when all these documents were declassified, decades later, yes, that's exactly what they did. Yeah. So Armas took control. He arrested thousands of people who were against him, repealed the Constitution, and became a dictator. So Guatemala had like 6-7 years, maybe 8 years of democracy before it's right back into a dictatorship. And Armas welcomed United Fruit back with open arms. Like, come on, take all your land back and you can start doing bananas again. For the next 30 years, from 1960 to 1996, Guatemala was plagued with civil war.
Oh, no.
This is, okay, I'm about to get into something really sad. So just so you guys are aware. Most of the resistance were indigenous Maya, and the government set up an extermination campaign, with most of the military having been trained with U.S. counterinsurgency tactics and armed with American weapons.
Oh, no.
It's known as the Silent Holocaust, or the Guatemalan genocide, with about 200,000 people being killed, most of who were Maya.
200,000?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got chills.
I know. It's really, really awful. This is not a happy episode. I'm really sorry, you guys. I didn't know that
bananas
this
so
bad.
sad?
Evil bananas.
Evil bananas.
I'm not going to get into detail. Those were the two that were the most notable with when we think of banana republics. But there's a couple other instances that happen that were similar.
Right.
I'll just touch upon. There's Cuba. Cuba wasn't quite, but it was essentially a protectorate of the United States following the Spanish-American War in 1902. Cuba was a huge sugar producer in the Caribbean and had exclusive trade rights with the U.S. Cuba became truly independent in 1934, but did retain that close trade relationship with the U.S. and sugar. But the demand that the U.S. placed on Cuba for sugar played a part in stoking the fires for the rebellion that happened in the Cuban Revolution in 1959. Right. When Fidel Castro took over Cuba, he dissolved almost all the American-owned land and gave it back to Cubans, which pissed off all those companies that had owned all that land. So Eisenhower and the CIA wanted to overthrow Castro, restore the previous relationship with sugar, and that's where we get the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. Yeah. We also have the Panama Canal. Again, it's not like what we think of, like, it's not a fruit export, but it was an instance where a foreign government basically took over a Central American country for their own benefit. So the French had tried to dig a canal going across Colombia, because Panama at the time was a part of Colombia, but it failed and the U.S. took over in 1902. The Colombian government was blocking their attempts to make the canal. But Theodore Roosevelt, who's the president of the United States, sent the Navy and was like, you're going to allow us to build this this canal. And there was a revolution that happened to make Panama independent from Colombia in 1903. And then this newly independent government allowed the U.S. to make the canal, which was completed in 1914. The Panamanians believed that they were being shafted by this deal because, of course, they were. The deal was that they would get I think it was $400,000 for the canal a year. But you can imagine the money that the U.S. is making off this canal.
Yeah, because they don't have to go around the horn anymore.
Yeah.
They don't have to go around that, so they're getting stuff faster, and it's making money hand over fist. So what's $400,000 is nothing.
Yeah, compared to the millions that the U.S. is making. And again, they had exclusive rights to this canal. So there was a riot that broke out in 1964, and 20 people died in this riot.
Oh.
And it wasn't until 1999 Panama took control over the canal. And, the U.S. finally was like, all right, it's all yours. Yeah. And it's Panama's canal now. And the U.S. still has a presence there, but it's mostly to just, help out if needed. But there's no more ownership from the U.S. over the Panama Canal. And then in 1973, there was a coup in Chile when there was a replacement of the President Salvador Allende with dictator Augusto Pinochet until 1990. Mm-hmm. And I got this quote from thecollector.com as well. It says, quote, between 1947 and 1989, America attempted 72 foreign regime changes with 66 covert efforts and only 6 overt ones, with the rationalization they were stomping out communism.
Oh, is it everywhere now? Communism's just, it's not.
In 20 years, America tried to overthrow 72 foreign governments.
In 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
That's over 30 a year. Did I do math right? Over 3 a year. Is that 3?
I literally cannot do the math in my head right now.
I was not doing okay. 72 divided by 3.6. Yeah, so right over 3 a year.
Okay. That's insane to me.
Yeah. Just pick one for the month. Quarterly.
Maybe just don't overthrow governments.
They were trying to overthrow governments quarterly.
The CIA was wildin', y'all.
Straight up wildin'. I mean, they didn't kill Kennedy, but they didn't.
So that's really all I have about banana republics as a corrupt, I don't even know what to call it,
yeah,
colonialism. But I'm sure you're dying to know about the brand.
I am dying to know about the brand.
So the Banana Republic brand was founded in 1978 by Mel and Patricia Ziegler.
Okay.
And it was eventually bought by Gap in 1983. They just thought it sounded cool. I have some quotes from Elizabeth Segran from fastcompany.com because she was able to write everything way better than I could. So the next few lines are direct quotes from her. The company name and aesthetic confused British colonialism in Africa with U.S. imperialism in Latin America. This is a pretty scathing article she wrote about Banana Republic. It was basically about why are some company brands renaming themselves but not Banana Republic? When all that was going on, Aunt Jemima rebranded and the Washington Redskins had rebranded. She was like, why isn't Banana Republic rebranding? Because, oh my God, why would you name a luxury clothing brand after this horrible colonialist practice?
Yeah, you tell me you didn't do any research at all without, nothing.
Literally, it started as Mel and Patricia, they would get military surplus clothing and redesign it as fashion safari clothing. That's how Banana Republic started. And actually, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, I have one of the first posters for the Banana Republic brand before it was bought by Gap. They're all about safari.
Oh my God. They look like they're on a safari.
Mm-hmm. Because it's literally what they did.
Yeah. It's a very nice watercolor, by the way. But, why? Okay. It's a whole different direction now.
It's actually after Gap bought the store or the brand, it transitioned to just like business fashion.
Yeah.
But actually, a few years ago, they actually came out with more like safari inspired clothing.
Oh, they're going back to their roots.
Yeah, a little bit. I have some more scathing lines about the company from Miss Segran from Fast Company. So this is another
Spill
one.
the tea.
Yes. Quote, safari suits featuring jackets and trousers or skirts with utility pockets made of lightweight beige or khaki cotton were the de facto uniform of British colonizers in Africa and the badge of the ruling race, in the words of historian Margaret Macmillan. Which I never really thought about, but yeah.
Oh, do you think they did it on purpose or they didn't
I don't think they did. They were I was reading some interviews by Mel, and he just seemed like, yeah, I just thought safari clothes were cool and we wanted to sell safari clothes, so we literally bought military surplus and like made it cool so people would buy it. Like they just seemed like clueless hippies, honestly.
I mean, safari clothes are cool, but not in this like context.
I really never thought about safari clothes being like colonialist in nature, but when you think about it like that, it does match like uniforms of like the military, which colonized African countries. So I understand.
Also, when I think of safari clothes, I think of like the era where the British Museum was just yoinking things from other countries. Like it was around this time that aesthetic was very popular when traveling. So that's kind of what I associate it to. So I guess I could see that.
So I have one last quote before I finish up. And this is another one. It's from Elizabeth Segran's article for fastcompany.com, but it's also a quote from Sarah Staley, who's at the time was Banana Republic's head of communication. Mm-hmm. When we reached out to Banana Republic about its name, the brand said it had a different interpretation of the term Banana Republic than its original. Today, the name reflects our heritage, and while the term has multiple meanings, to us it has always signified an imaginary, fictitious world, says Sarah Staley, Banana Republic's head of communications. And further, the brand sees no problem with its origins as a brand that sold safari-themed clothing. A year ago, Banana Republic reintroduced a new brand look, nodding to its heritage while reinventing itself for today's modern world, Staley says. So,
I don't know what...
I think it's really ironic that a company who took its name from a super colonialist practice made colonialist clothing, not on purpose.
Doesn't see the error of their ways. Like...
And, like, there's, as far as what I could see, there was no talk about them changing their name.
Also, what other interpretations are there? This is the only time I've ever heard, other than the clothing brand, the term Banana Republic used. Like, what other interpretations are there?
I don't know. I can't think of any. And honestly, a lot of these conversations started up again because... Again, this isn't a political podcast, so I don't want to get into it, but people started talking about Banana Republics again in recent history because in 2020, after the failed insurrection on January 6th, and people were starting to become arrested for their actions during the insurrection, some political leaders started referring to the United States as a Banana Republic, which is incredibly ironic.
Wow.
And just inherently false.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So, yeah, that's Banana Republics.
Well, the more you know. Next
That's
time you buy a banana, see if it's got Chiquita label on it.
Yeah, and just know that Chiquita helped overthrow a government and establish a dictator in Guatemala in the 50s.
I was about to say, not that long ago.
70 years ago.
Yeah. That's within someone's lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Easily.
I will say, this is not... none of this is mentioned in the Chiquita story.
Okay.
I went to the Chiquita website because I was like, hey, what do they have on their website? And they literally have like little PowerPoint slides about like their story. And they're like, oh, we started as the Boston Fruit Company by these guys and emerged with this railroad company. It became United Fruit. And then we became Chiquita in the 80s. And we have a lot of ships. Nothing in between.
Look at these boats. Just look at them. Aren't they nice white boats?
Look way over there at those boats.
Don't look at anything going on back here. Focus on the bananas and the boats. We're Chiquita.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, God.
Look at our funny little banana lady.
Sam the Banana Man was a great guy.
Mm.
And Late Christmas wasn't crazy.
Goodness gracious. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. Y'all know a little bit more about banana republics and imperialism and colonialism and yeah.
Oh. If you want to overthrow a government, like start with bananas?
Yeah, that's basically it. That's the coup.
Yeah. Okay.
Just have bananas.
I'm not planning
apparently.
I'm not.
No, I'm not
planning.
either. Don't overthrow governments, y'all.
Yeah, don't. Is it worth?
You know how you bring about change? You vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually relevant this year.
Yes. Please go vote.
Yeah, go vote.
Utilize your right. Yeah.
Oh.
That's all I got.
Cool. Well,
sorry it's a bummer, y'all.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We gotta have some ups and downs because that's what history is. It's just can't be happy-go-lucky all the time.
You gotta talk about the serious stuff every once in a while. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I want to know more about banana republics. This is making me sad. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really hoping that last week's episode was gonna be... I mean, I knew about H.H. Holmes, but I thought there was gonna be... I don't know. I never associated it with racism, so I was like, that was a bummer to find.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's the times. There was racism everywhere.
Yeah.
I hate it. It's icky. It feels icky.
Boo racism. Yeah. No racism here. This is an anti-racism podcast.
Exactly. Anti-racism podcast. And history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will talk about it, but we do not condone it.
Exactly. Exactly. Should we get into socials?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, you can find us on Facebook.
At illequippedhistory.
Instagram.
At illequippedhistory.
TikTok.
At illequippedhistory.
Gmail.
illequippedhistory@gmail.com.
Patreon?
Or patreon.com/illequippedhistory. Sign up for bonus episodes.
Yeah, and stickers.
And stickers. I always forget about the stickers. I don't know why.
You can't forget about the stickers. And we have YouTube now.
Yeah.
You can see our picture. Channel. Yeah. Maybe eventually we'll get video on there.
We'll see.
Yeah, right.
That'll be a riot and a half.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine doing a podcast with our physical appearances right now?
I have a backwards hat, my husband's t-shirt, and there's an RC airplane behind me.
I am wearing gray sweatpants and a white tank top, and I've got all my craft stuff behind me, so I look like a hot mess.
I'm also wearing biker shorts, compression socks, and I'm wrapped in a blanket from the waist down, so I'm like a granny.
We're super attractive, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have curly rain hair, so... Because it rained on me earlier. It was lovely.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, it rained real hard here, too.
It was like for 3 minutes, and it's only when we were outside. It was wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well,
thanks for listening. Don't overthrow governments.
And if you're gonna name a clothing company, do research. Just a little bit.
I think that's great advice, Emily.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful advice.
Thanks. It's I think it's solid.
Yeah, that's A+ advice.
Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye.